Before we get started, I want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so that you don't miss any of the content that is released by GoCollect. And if you're interested, head over to Reggie Collects here on YouTube.
Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector and the host of the GoCollect speculation video, and I want to welcome you to another episode. We are going to spend some time over the next few minutes talking about 6 fantastic blog posts that have been sent in to GoCollect by bloggers all across the country. As a reminder, all of the blog posts that I'm going to be talking about are linked in the description, so you may want to take some time to click on those links and read these blog posts in their entirety. With that said, let's get to the post. This first blog post is a must-read in my opinion, and I say that because the blogger does an amazing job of talking about restored comics. And if you have never caught this particular brick, consider yourself lucky. And I say that because it's a bad feeling when you buy a raw comic that you believe is unrestored and you send it off to get graded and it comes back as a restored comic. It is not a good feeling at all. And I am telling you from experience that it's not a good thing. I have caught this particular brick. And the great thing about this blog post is that the blogger gives us a history of restored comics as well as definitions for what constitutes different types of restoration, from color touch to trimming, as a couple of examples. This really is a great blog post that should put many of us ahead of the curve when it comes to understanding what restoration is and isn't and what we should be on the lookout for. Now, I will say that some people will look at restored comics as a great opportunity to get a book at a discount. And I say that because restored comics, purple label comics from CGC, for example, tend to be discounted versus that of a blue label. And so some people will see purple labels as an opportunity to get a book at a reduced price. Other people, again, if you go into it not knowing what you're buying, you might feel like, you've caught a brick. And so, again, this is a wonderful blog post that will put you ahead of the curve. Read it. It is linked in the description. Our bloggers this week honestly are on fire. There is some really great content, and that includes the first blog post that we spoke about as well as the one that we're going to speak about now, which essentially plots the rise and the fall of some important keys. One of the things that a lot of people assume is that comics only move in one direction. They only increase in value. There are other people out there that believe that comics will have a spike in popularity and then a fall off over time, never to be seen or heard from again. Neither one of those things are true. Comics oftentimes will have a cycle because those cycles in popularity kind of wax and wane with people's interest in certain characters. And sometimes that interest can be driven by some outside influences like movies and TV shows. And our blogger examines 2 books that have had a rise and a fall and may potentially see a rise again, at least in one case. And we are specifically talking first about Avengers issue number 57 from 1968. This is the first Silver Age appearance of the Vision. And this book, again, has been super popular back in the day and is starting to see a little bit of a resurgence right now. The second book that the blogger talks about is Avengers issue number 55. This is the first full appearance of Ultron. And essentially what the blogger does is plots the course of these 2 books over time. It examines the highs and the lows and the motivations behind why we've seen those peaks and valleys. This post, like the first one, are 2 that you should read. They are both linked down in the description. One of the hottest covers this year has been Amazing Spider-Man issue number 55. That has really captured people's attention. And if you ever watch my video, my top 10 submitted books into CGC video, you know this book is one that a lot of people are submitting because it's been on the list for the last few months. But our blogger actually takes a slight departure from some of these modern comics that are really familiar to us. And essentially what he does is identify 5 iconic covers from the golden age. And what's really cool, I think in many cases, is that folks are at least familiar with these characters, but potentially not these covers. I don't know if the covers are, burned onto people's minds like ASM 55 is, for example, just given its popularity and given how old some of these golden age books are. But our blogger, I think, is really determined to change some of that. And he has issued one blog post already identifying 5 really fantastic covers. And I believe that there is a plan to release additional blog posts in the future. With that said, I want to highlight 2 of the 5 books that I thought were really cool, and both of them are Batman books. The very first book is Batman issue number 20, and this book jumps out at me because it is a fantastic, iconic cover featuring the classic Batmobile. The CGC census shows only a total of 249 copies of this book out there, with a 9.4 being the highest grade that's available. The FMV for that 9.4 is $26,000, but the really interesting thing is that you can score this iconic Batman book for under $2,000 if you look at a graded copy that is a 7.0 or lower. And this honestly is just a cool cover in my opinion. And to that point, the second book that I want to highlight for you is another really cool cover, specifically Batman issue number 9. This book from 1942 is just an iconic cover featuring Batman and Robin. The CGC census shows only about 196 graded copies out there, with the highest again being a 9.4. And that 9.4 has an FMV of $52,000. But again, you can actually score this book if you're looking at like a 4.0 or less for around $2,000, which is still a considerable amount of money, but considering the age of these 2 books, that's not terrible. As I mentioned, there are 3 other books that are on this list. If you're curious as to what they are, you might want to check out this blog post. So I am literally in the middle of watching Zack Snyder's Justice League in the other room. And you might be wondering, what does that have to do with anything? It has to do with the next blog post that we are going to talk about. Because in this blog post, the blogger does a really fantastic job of examining the blurred lines that exist between cameo appearances and first appearances. Now, you know that this has been a topic of debate for weeks and months and years, and will probably be a topic of debate for years to come. But when you look at the cameo and first appearance of Darkseid, the lines are very blurred. And here's what I mean by that. The cameo appearance of Darkseid is considered to be Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen issue number 134. According to GoCollect, at a 9.8, this book has a FMV of $11,000. When you look at a lesser grade, a 6.5 for example, over the last 3 years, this book's value has increased by about 38%. A 6.5 has an FMV of $300. What's interesting about this book is that Darkseid appears on the last page in a single panel on a TV screen. Now contrast what you just heard to his full appearance, which happens to be Forever People issue number 1. Now in this book, he appears on the last page in 2 panels. Now, When you look at the FMV of this book at a 9.8, what you see, according to GoCollect, is that it has a value of $4,000. Contrast that to a 6.5, it has an FMV of $170. Both of those numbers at a 6.5 and a 9.8 are a far cry from what you see on the other side with his cameo appearance. But again, you're talking about the difference between 2 panels and 1 panel, but the dollar amount between these 2 books is dramatic. And I don't know which is a better book to have. I personally have not bought either book because I really could not make up my mind as to where I wanted to spend my money. And I was one of those people that was very excited about the Snyder Cut coming out, particularly because of Darkseid's appearance in the movie. And I, again, did not pull the trigger on picking up either one of these books because I could not make up my mind. With that said, I am very curious if, where are your thoughts? Which book would you pick up? Would you pick up Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen? If so, why? Would you pick up Forever People? If so, why? If you picked these books up, why did you do it? I am honestly interested in hearing what you all's thoughts are, because maybe it'll influence my decision. And so down in the comment section, make sure you leave your thoughts behind. One of the great things about the GoCollect bloggers is that they have a diverse set of interests that includes comics from different publishers like DC and Marvel and Image and Independence for that matter. But it also includes different genres of comics as well. This week, we are treated to a wonderful blog post about Westerns, and our blogger is essentially posing the question as to if Westerns are poised for a comeback. And in this blog post, he specifically talks about one title in particular, that being Kid Colt. And it appears that Kid Colt issue number 2 could be on fire as far as Western comics go. The blogger cites that there have been 11 sales of Kid Colt number 2 in recent time, and that a 6.5 graded copy of this book was sold at Heritage for $528, which is a significant increase from the last sale of $179. The blogger also highlights that you want to check out Kid Colt issue number 2, but you also want to keep your eyes open for issue number 13, 23, and 26, because those books are also catching a little heat. And in addition to that specific title, the blogger says that if you were out there hunting for these books, if you believe that Westerns are poised for a comeback, you might also want to check out Kid Colt Outlaw, Rawhide Kid, Two Gun Kid, All-Star Western, and even Kirby and Simon's Boys Ranch, just to name a few. And I will tell you that I recently was A-okayed a copy of Two Gun Kid issue number 77. I read it and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And so again, if you believe that Westerns are poised for a comeback, you may want to check out this blog post. This next blog post is a little bit of a cautionary note, like some of the others that we've spoken about thus far. And in this post, our blogger is essentially saying that if you are investing in modern comics, you can't just pay attention to the highs that a book will have. You also have to pay attention to the lows as well, and potentially start to understand what pushes a book in either the positive territory or the negative territory. And over the course of this blog post, our blogger examines 3 books that have been on the top 100 list, but have fallen off of that list. And the truth of the matter is that books can have a decline in popularity, but not necessarily a decline in value. And that is actually the case for the very first book that the blogger talks about. And that is specifically Sensational She-Hulk issue number 1. And this book is a popular book among a lot of people because it represents a preferred version of She-Hulk who breaks the fourth wall. This book, again, was on the top 100, but has fallen to the 224th spot on the list. And at a 9.8,
this book has actually maintained its value. In fact, we've actually seen a positive return for this book of 34%. Now contrast that to the next book that is on the list that was also on the top 100, but is now fallen to the 252nd spot on the list. And we are specifically talking about X-Men issue number 4, the cameo appearance of Gambit. This book, once popular, is not as popular now, but has also seen a negative impact to its value to the tune of about 14%. And so again, this is a little bit of a cautionary note to say that these books are moving in different ways. They are popular one day, not so popular the next. They may or may not retain their value as that popularity waxes and wanes. And so again, just a really awesome blog post that you may want to check out. It is linked down in the description. So there you have it. We've reached the end of another recap. If you enjoyed this video, I want to encourage you to leave a comment behind, hit the thumbs up button, and tune in next week when we get to do this all over again.